Hi everyone, and welcome to the online version of the interview tips and tactics. This will be the updated version for the 2018 application cycle. Let's get started. What we're going to cover today relatively quickly in this online version is going to be how to plan ahead for an interview. We're going to go a little bit over what to wear. We're going to discuss an overview of the interview formats with several sample questions, the typical questions involved, and then a few miscellaneous items. Incredibly simplistic to say out loud, but it needs to be said. Plan ahead for your interview. You need to map out the route. You need to figure out whether you're driving, whether you're walking, what part of campus your building is on. Imagine when you came to UNC for the very first time and set foot on campus if you were tasked with finding Bondurant. It's in central campus. It's not exactly got a lot of parking that is very close to it. So these are the kinds of logistical problems you're going to need to sort well before your interview date. So if at all possible, get there the night before and figure out what your route is going to be so that everything is timed and you will be early for your appointment the next day. There are several portions of the interview that are going to be handled by student representatives. There are several check-in points where you're going to be dealing with administrative front desk folks. You need to be on at all times, and by on, I mean honest, enthusiastic, and courteous. You need to be aware of your body language, and you need to remember that everybody weighs in on the interview day, including those student representatives and including those front desk administrative people. Never recommend buying something or spending money on anything unless you absolutely have to. And for my pre-med students, I absolutely recommend the MSAR, the Medical School Admissions Requirements. It is worth its weight in gold, particularly when it comes to school mission statements, acceptance profiles, matriculant data. It will give you not only the average accepted GPA and MCAT, but the 90th percentile to 10th percentile range, so you are well aware of what the comfort zones are. It also discusses the interview formats for each school. There are parallel guides for dental. That's going to be the ADEA Guide to Dental Schools. There's also an ACOMAS instruction manual and book of osteopathic medical schools. For my PA students, you're going to want to look at PAEA Online. That stands for Physician Assistant Education Association Online. You also have CASPA, and for my PT students, you have PTCAS and APTA, American Physical Therapy Association. Those all have listings of all member participating schools, and they'll usually have more information about their acceptance profiles and some of their deadlines and interview formats. Example of a page from the MSAR. This is on UNC. It doesn't say when interview invitations are sent, but it does say that it is one-on-one open file, and they're typically held on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now, no regional interviews are available and video interviews are not available. Unfortunately, that is incredibly common for medical schools. Very few, if any, that I know of will accept a video interview or a regional interview. Here's a similar page for ECU. They do start sending out interview invitations in mid-July. That times up very well with the first wave of applications. If you get your stuff sent in early June, then your file is typically sent to medical schools by early July. They review them and decide who's going to get an interview. Theirs are 2 semi-blind interviews with committee members, usually 30 minutes apiece. Again, all at the medical school. None of them are available for video interview. Another key prep is going to be utilizing UCS. Any of our general career counselors here are well versed in how to conduct mock interviews, and I have updated all of the interview questions for all of the different health professions, and they should have some tips on how to handle individual schools. The good news for y'all is the majority of you will be interviewing at least preliminarily at state schools, UNC and ECU, and they are very well versed in traditional behavioral interview formats, which we will talk a little bit more about coming up in the presentation. Interview Stream is another resource available to you through UCS. You can log in through the Career Services portal, and this is an interview prompt service that as long as you have an internet and a webcam, it will prompt you with questions. You can record yourself and play back the answers, because I believe we all know that we are our own worst enemies. So you will pick up on any tics you have or any irks that you have in your playback, as I'm sure I will when I listen to this on the other side. I always hate myself on the other side of these recordings, so if you hate me, know that we're in the same boat. You need to review your MCATs and secondaries. The reason being, if you submit 5, 10 secondaries, guaranteed by the 8th, it's very different from the first. So you need to remember exactly what you told the schools in their individual applications. So it's okay when you're in an interview to retread some of the topics that you covered. It would be crazy to think that something that was your most meaningful volunteer experience wasn't something that might come up during an interview. But a mistake I see a lot of people make is trying to remember verbatim their answers and repeat them in the interview. And that's the wrong way to go. You need to be natural, and you need to be able to shed some different light on it when it comes to that question. So know exactly what you've said before, and have questions ready. This is true of a job interview, and it's absolutely true of a medical school interview too. You need to have some questions ready to ask them on the other side of it. Please make sure that it is not something that is readily available on their website. Pack accordingly. You need to have a copy of your AMCAS submission, your secondary materials, the invitation and number for the school, contact information for a person, place where you are staying, and potentially a map of the area. Here are some other odds and ends that are usually listed as beneficial to pack as well, just food for thought. Flight information, necessary forms of ID. You may possibly need to bring some form of credit or debit card to check in if you're staying at a hotel. There are some schools that will ask you to bring a 2x2 photo, so please remember to bring it if the school requests it. Any short printouts about the U.S. healthcare system, perhaps some topics for conversation in the event that you have small group discussion. You need to bring your laptop, computer, and a charging cord. These interviews typically last a whole day, and you don't know what your food situation is going to be. You don't want it growling in the middle of an interview, so maybe pack some food and snacks or a bottled water. Vitamins, Q-tips, cell phone and charger, sunglasses, mouthwash, iPod and charger. Oh, this is an old list. Hey, I still have an iPod. I represent that remark. 3-ounce bottles and Ziplocs for flying. You probably want to bring a camera. Your watch should be digital or analog, something that is very easy to read so you know exactly what the time frames are. You can probably bring some thank you cards and a small gift for the host if you are staying at a place where you are hosted by a student. If you're staying in a dorm, you may want to think about bringing shower shoes. You don't want to risk spilling stuff on your suit and coming in with spots, so bring a Tide pen or a spot remover. Bring some Tylenol, bring some Band-Aids, bring a travel alarm clock, enough cash to cover a taxi emergency or other travel emergency. Pen, pencil, and or a pad folio, and I have a picture of what one of those looks like. Bring a lint brush and some hand sanitizer, although I have seen some schools that will have clearly posted "do not shake hands" signs. Unfortunately, interview season tends to fall during flu season every fall, so there may be some schools that have posted no handshakes. Otherwise, if you are shaking a lot of hands, you're going to want to have a bottle of hand sanitizer and maybe a bottle of wrinkle release. Don't forget to pack any medications you take regularly. You don't want your thyroid or anxiety acting up if you have forgotten to pack the necessary medications. Appropriately for the culture. That means professional, formal. That also means dressing for the culture and the climate. Because if you're interviewing in South Florida, you don't necessarily want a heavy wool suit, in the same way you don't want a light linen blend if you are interviewing up at Hopkins in the middle of November. So gray or blue are perfectly fine for men. Black is only for funerals. No black suits for gentlemen. Women, the rules are a little more relaxed. Female identifying, you can wear gray, blue, or black. Always err on the side of being overdressed. This is professional, formal. Remember, no mix match blazers and khakis. Health professions expect business formal, like I said, professional formal. No gum, no smoking. I don't care if you do, you should probably quit anyway, but you don't want to smell like you smoke at a medical school interview. I know chunky jewelry is a big thing, big statement necklaces, but this is not the time to be remembered for your accessories. No club wear. Ladies, lady identifying, if it has bodycon in the description of the clothing, you are not allowed to wear it for an interview. Skirt suits used to be the norm, but pantsuits are incredibly common. Gone are the days when you are required to wear stockings. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, so if you want to, fine. If not, also perfectly fine. No cropped suit jackets, and no dangly earrings. But not with your outfit. Again, you want to stand out to them because of the answers to the questions they pose. You do not want to be remembered for your really frilly blouse or your loud and garish tie. Now, up here in the upper right corner, this is a picture of what a padfolio might look like. It's preferably leather bound or pleather bound. And it will have a notepad, a place for business cards, a place for a campus map if you need it, and pens. You're going to want to take notes during the interview because you have questions for them, but the discussion may also prompt some more questions that you want to ask along the way. Gentlemen, 3-piece versus 2-piece versus 1-button versus 3-button, they're all very flexible. As long as it is fitted well, as long as it is paired with a tie, and as long as it is simple, you will be fine. If you're accessorizing 1 ring and 1 ring only, I have had some medical school admissions committee members joke that if you're wearing an earring, just make it your best diamond. It is one thing to be standing in a skirt and it be a perfectly fine length, but remember that that shifts when you sit down. Gentlemen, same with your slacks. I don't want to see your shins when you sit down. So make sure that you practice wearing your outfit. Scheduling a mock interview here at University Career Services and planning to wear your outfit for the day is a perfectly fine way to go about doing that. And then have it laundered well in advance. I love a Louboutin as much as the next person, but high heels are not exactly comfortable. And remember the terrain that you're going to be walking on. Imagine doing UNC's campus in 4-inch heels. That's why I say if you're wearing a heel, make sure it's stacked so that it is comfortable. It is okay to wear some flat loafers. I am a huge fan of the dress loafers trend that is going around. Kitten heels, while they are low and might make sense, are still not the best idea. So make sure if you're wearing a heel that it is sturdy and comfortable. Back. Situational is a slightly different take on the same traditional behavioral format. They are still trying to get to the heart of the same characteristics, they're just doing it in a slightly different way. What would you do if one of your patients told you that they would prefer a non-traditional homeopathic remedy for their disease? Or you are assigned a group project and one of your classmates is not contributing fully? How do you address the situation, if at all? These may seem like 2 completely different questions, but if you drill down a little bit further, you will realize that they are still both trying to get to the heart of what is your communication style? How do you handle conflicts? Multimini interviews are a bit more complicated. They are essentially speed dating for interviews. You are assigned probably 8 to 9 different rotations, 8 to 10 different rotations. You are given a question. You have usually 2 to 3 minutes to prepare your answer for that question, and then you walk into a room, usually with an admissions representative, sometimes with a trained, standardized patient, and given a scenario to either answer that question or role play. You need to understand the goal and work on your time management, because the worst thing that can happen is you think you've chatted on for 5 minutes and it's really only 90 seconds, and then if they don't have a prompt to continue the conversation, you sit there awkwardly for the next 6.5 minutes. You should aim to answer the questions in a manner that demonstrates that you are capable of being an excellent student and thereafter an outstanding professional. Make a list of the attributes that you believe are essential for success, such as integrity and the ability to think critically, and then practice integrating these key attributes into your answers. This is true of all interview formats. Many students experience difficulty with pacing and effectively answering the question in the allotted time. Therefore, proper pacing is essential. Practice what 7 to 8 minute presentations in advance feel like to get comfortable with the timing. And this goes back to what I said about making sure that you have a digital or analog watch that is able to be read very, very easily. since you cannot rely on a clock being present in each interview room. Appropriately managing your time will give you the opportunity to end the interview in an organized and effective manner. During the MMI, the interviewer will often provide prompts designed to direct you. Listen carefully to the cues provided so that you can take advantage of any new information that may be introduced. The prompts may guide you to the specific issues that are of focus in each rotation. So here's a sample of an MMI question, and I apologize in advance that it is specifically pertaining to Canadians, but MMIs did originate in Canada, so blame Canada for all of this. Because of federal and provincial subsidy policies and return of service agreements, international medical graduates, IMGs, now make up an increasingly large proportion of rural doctors. As a consequence, the shortage of doctors in rural areas has prompted many family medicine residencies to increase their quotas for IMGs in their programs. Effectively, this development is leading to a relative reduction in spots available for Canadian medical graduates. Please discuss the pros and cons of such a development. So this is a sample scenario where you will likely go in and have to answer this question or plead your case with an actor. Another variation for MMIs is an essay writing station, the standard interview station, or even a teamwork station where candidates must work together to complete a task. They are often also They also sometimes have a rest station in between. So at one point, when everybody else is answering their questions and going into their rooms, you will have a chance to rest. Here's another version. Joe is a pizza delivery worker. The pizza shop he works for has a 30 minutes or less delivery guarantee, or else the customer does not have to pay. On Joe's most recent delivery, he spots a woman bleeding on the street. There is no one else around, and the woman seems to be unable to move by herself. However, Joe knows if he returns empty-handed again, he will be fired from this job, which he most desperately needs. What do you think Joe should do? Justify your solution in terms of practical and ethical considerations. A third example, you are on the committee for selecting a new dean of science. What characteristics and or qualities would you look for when selecting an effective dean? So, back to strategy. You should have an idea for some of the characteristics you want to put in some of these answers. You need to practice under timed conditions. Although success cannot be guaranteed, your performance can improve significantly by learning about the interview process, acquiring strategies to avoid the common pitfalls, and knowing ways to sell yourself so that you can get the place that you deserve. Poise under pressure can make the difference in MMI days. Another subset of typical formats is whether or not it's open file, blind or semi-blind, and timed. For UNC, it is open file and incredibly conversational. For ECU, it is 2 30-minute interviews that are typically blind to semi-blind. That can mean they either have your numbers but not your essays, or more likely your essays but not your numbers. Just because it is open file only means they have the opportunity to read it, not necessarily that they have studied it in detail. Again, UNC is traditional 40 to 60-minute interview. ECU is 2 30-minute interviews. Wake this cycle has adopted MMI. Duke has traditionally been MMI. Some other big MMIs that you may want to know about are ECU's Physician Assistant Program, and of course Eshelman School of Pharmacy. Practice, practice, practice. Mock interviews with a couple of different professionals here at Career Services, utilizing interview stream. Know why you want to be a doctor, but tell me about yourself. What got you here today? That's generally the first and often the hardest question for students to ask. It should be equal parts biography and personal statement without necessarily being all or the other. What if you don't get in this year? The worst thing you can do is say, well, I've not considered that because I'm so passionate about getting into medical school. That shows that you have no self-awareness for how competitive the nature of applications to these health professions programs are, and you need to have a plan in place. The why should we select you? It's not just because you're passionate to go into healthcare. It needs to have aspects of why that school is a good fit for you and vice versa. Another tip is if the interviewer continues to repeat the same question despite the fact that you have answered it, That usually means they like you, but did not necessarily like your answer, and they're giving you an opportunity to modify it. For the traditional behavioral questions and even some of the situational ones, you want to maximize your experiences. You should have at least one shadowing experience that you can hone and have ready to pull out. You should have a volunteering experience that you should have polished in a good story that will fit a couple of different questions. And you should be able to espouse some of your interests outside of healthcare or the sciences. Sometimes they like to ask, what's the last book you read for pleasure? They usually like to ask what a hobby is, something that makes you unique, or something that demonstrates you have something that relieves stress for you. Maximize your reference to the soft skills. They know your academic acumen because you are there. What they want to know is that you're going to be a good fit and able to deal with patients one day. When it comes to addressing your missteps, do not bring it up unless they ask you. They know your GPA. They know your standardized test score. They know your academic performance, and they've brought you there anyway. Have an answer ready in case they ask, but never proffer and start on the defensive. When it comes to discussing your research, remember, nobody really gives a damn about it but you. So be able to do it simply and be able to do it succinctly. Follow the news. There are usually hot topics that are current or controversial. Over the last several years, of course, Obamacare, the ACA, the repeal, all of that has been in the news. So those are probably some questions that are still going to happen. There are also some classic questions like, what would you do if you were asked to perform a procedure that goes against your beliefs? Again, some of the questions you're going to want to make sure you have for them should not be things easily found on their website. Don't ask them what their match rates are, because those are things that you're going to be able to find on the website. Alright, we are coming to the end of this, and I have a couple of informational videos that I think will be incredibly useful for identifying and eliminating problematic speech patterns that I notice in some of our students that are going to be negatives in an interview. Number one is upspeak, and then a little bit of vocal fry. So we're going to do the upspeak video first on how to finish strong.
Speaking a simple statement as a question. For example, if I were to say, I'm going to the store, I'm going to get some coffee, and then I'm going to the beach. If I were to speak it using excessive upspeak, I would say, I'm going to the store, I'm getting some coffee, and then I'm going to the beach. What happens when I speak like that? Well, first of all, it makes me sound a little bit unsure. Secondly, it makes me sound less than confident. And finally, it appears as though I'm trying to get an answer from the person I'm talking to, or even to get validation from them. How can you tell if you use upspeak excessively? Well, first, you could talk to your peers, your fellow workers, and ask them if you come across as lacking confidence or certainty in your presentations or in your meeting with clients. Also, you could even more effectively record yourself. Simply pop out your phone, most of our phones now we can record ourselves with, and listen to yourself during a public presentation or a meeting with a client, or even when you're on the phone with someone, and listen back. Do you end your sentences with an uptone excessively? The easiest way to solve upspeak is just to practice. Practice as though you're speaking your statements walking down some stairs. Literally, I'm going to the store. I'm getting some coffee. And then, wait for it, I'm going to the beach. What it does is it provides confidence, authority, and really what it does is it gives you purpose in your speech.
Upspeak is incredibly common with my students, and it is best if you work to practice to eliminate that, because you are not asking permission or looking for an answer from an admissions committee member. You need to be confident. Remember, there is a thin line between confidence versus arrogance, so do practice. The last one will be on vocal fry, just a couple minutes. I find it very useful.
There's a vocal phenomenon we're hearing more and more. It's called vocal fry, or, as you may have heard it, vocal fry. This is when we speak by constricting the air in our vocal cords. Imagine the sentence, said in a job interview. Good morning, my name is Allison Shapira, and I'm really excited to be here for this job interview. How credible do you sound? How professional do you sound? Now imagine taking a deep breath and speaking on the breath. Good morning, my name is Allison Shapira, and I'm really excited to interview for this job. You sound so much more powerful and professional. Now, when we constrict the air in our vocal cords, we're literally taking away the power of our words, the power of our presence. So the antidote to vocal fry is deep breathing and then speaking on the breath so that you can amplify your message. We use vocal fry for different reasons. Maybe we picked it up from other people who are using it and what a colleague of mine calls linguistic contagion. Or maybe we're just lazy. We just don't care enough to take a deep breath, and that's how we sound. But if you have a message, if you have something powerful to say, then take a deep breath and let your voice speak with the power of the words, and you will have so much more meaning and impact in your language.
Again, it's commonly referred to as the Kardashian voice. Please try to avoid vocal fry in that it does take away from the purpose and the passion of the answers that you are giving. As far as following up, remember how I said it's good to pack some thank you notes and some stationery? See, I used upspeak there because I was asking a question. You do want to send a handwritten note to interviewers or to people on your interview panel as soon as possible, unless the school asks you not to do this. If they specifically say, do not follow up, do not send thank yous, UNC can be guilty of this, so pay close attention to what their instructions are when you go to an interview. You can travel with them, and it's a good thing to do while you're waiting for your train, your plane, your bus. You want to write down something special about each school or something unique about a conversation with each person that you interacted with. So not only are you thanking them in a generic fashion, you are reminding them of who you are. So the thank you note serves a double purpose. One last time for the people in the back. It is mock interview season here at UCS. Any career counselor is more than willing and more than capable to conduct a mock interview for you for any of the health professions programs. We do not do full-scale MMI mock interviews, but we can have some sample questions and we can help you with the strategy involved. Interview Stream is going to be your best bet, particularly for practicing answering the questions and avoiding vocal fry and avoiding upspeak and making sure that you have purpose and clarity to your statements. Well, the question slide isn't really applicable for the online format, is it? Thank you very much for your time. There are some more informational pieces on interviewing and other resources on the Prehealth website. Best of luck.